Hi, this is Michael Buffer, and welcome to the BoxHard Podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is Mikey Garcia.
This the monster from the swamps, Regis Rougarou Program.
Hey, what's up? This is King Carlos Molina, former IBF world champ.
This is Michael, the Bounty Hunter, 2012 Olympian and your people's champ.
This is Charlie Edwards, flyweight champion of the world.
This is Fast Eddie Chambers, and you're listening to the BoxHard Podcast with my main man, Joey Coastman.
Hello everybody and welcome to episode 357 of the BoxHard Podcast. I'm your host Joey Coastman. I'm joined as ever by former heavyweight world title challenger, my good friend Mr. Fast Eddie Chambers. Eddie, how you doing this week, my man?
I'm doing good, man. How about you?
Always good when speaking with you, Eddie. That is the truth. We're going to dive straight into the review part of the show. We're going to start here with a card that partially took place anyway, last Friday, August 12th. It was at the Findlay Toyota Center in Prescott Valley, Arizona, USA. Again, the main event was supposed to take place in, I think it was Ghana, then Dubai, then just plainly in Arizona. But no, it still didn't take place there. It was a really bizarre card because I think in the UK, if you wanted to watch it, you had to watch it on Fight TV, and I think that might have even been the same for the US. But anyway, it started really late. Like literally the undercard started really late, so it was 5 a.m. UK time is when the undercard started, so that would be midnight your time, Eddie, and I'm guessing in Arizona about 9 p.m. That was the first fight on the undercard as far as I'm aware, and we saw a couple fights. I will mention them. In fact, before I mention them, when the telecast started, I believe as soon as it started, there wasn't any fights for quite a while, and for about the first half an hour, all that was going on is you could just hear music, and I think there was like 2 advertisement posters that I guess must have sponsored the event, and the camera was basically positioned on like a chair, projecting onto these 2 advertisement posters, and one of them was for a taco shop. I remember that. I think the taco shop had sponsored the event or something, and it became quite clear that they didn't have any proper cameramen throughout the event, and it was like a guy was filming the fights from outside the ring on the floor, and a few times when he was filming these undercard fights, the ropes were getting in the way. It was really quite bizarre, especially because I think it was $30 pay-per-view on Fight TV. It was £25 in the UK over here. People were fuming, and that of course isn't the main problem with the card. Let's go through the fights that did take place. Keenan Carberhow, now 24-3 with a draw, a TKO in round 3 against Aelio Mesquita, who's now 21-8 with a draw. Friend of the show, the mighty midget Tremaine Williams, moved to win number 20. He does have that one loss at world level, and he won here of course on points unanimously over 10 against Jetro Pabustan, who is 31-10 with 6 draws. But yeah, a couple other fights took place, but obviously the main 2 fights, we were supposed to see Lorenzo Simpson in the co-feature, and then the main event of course Tevin Farmer and Mickey Bay. As far as I'm aware, the promoters didn't deliver on what was promised, and I believe the fighters had actually arrived at the venue, if I'm not mistaken, but anyway, they refused to fight, so the fight didn't happen, and of course the card ended up finishing a lot earlier than it was expected to, and I'm not sure what's happening about refunds, because that was absolutely just insane, to be honest. But it is the sport of boxing, and anything can happen in this crazy sport that we all love. Leaving Friday alone, though, we certainly should. We're going to move now to Saturday, August 13th at the Resorts World Las Vegas over here. It was on ESPN. Let's start with the undercard. A good win for prospect Troy Isley. He's now 7-0, a unanimous decision over 6 rounds against Victor Toney, who is a relation somewhere along the line of James Toney. He's now 6-2 with a draw. Wins as well on the undercard for Duke Reagan. He's now 7-0. He was able to beat unanimously over 6 rounds D'Angelo Fuentes, who's now 7-1. And Omar Rosario now 8-0, a unanimous decision over 6 rounds against Esteban Munoz. In other news on the card, we had Xander Zayas, the Puerto Rican prospect, now 14-0, a TKO in round 5 against Elias Espadas, who's now 22-5. Good knockout for Zayas. I actually thought that one could have ended up going 8 rounds, the full distance, but no, he did well to get the stoppage. Espadas was down in the first round. It was for the NABO WBO super welterweight title, so that's good there for Zayas. I should mention as well, Andres Cortez now 18-0, a unanimous decision over 8 rounds, quite wide in the end against Abraham Montoya, now 20-4 with a draw. But the main event, Teofimo Lopez now 17-1. He returned back to winning ways, obviously after losing to George Kambosos. He was back with a bang, up at a new weight. A 7th round TKO against Pedro Campa, who's now 34-2 with a draw. It was for the WBO International Super Lightweight title and the North American Boxing Federation, so NABF Super Lightweight title as well. Both belts were vacant. It was an exciting fight. I felt that Teofimo used his jab a hell of a lot more than he normally would. It was an assertive jab. It was a solid jab, and obviously he had the edge in hand speed. His opponent was a lot bigger than him, though. We should note that. But I felt that Teofimo looked sharp. I liked his counter punching. I feel like I saw a slightly different side to him than what we normally see. Obviously, as the fight went on, particularly the mid rounds, he started to kind of up the gears. And yeah, he turned up, I guess, in the end, and he kind of looked like the old Lopez. The flashiness, it was all there, the pizzazz, the charisma, and he said it himself, I have the it factor that some of these other guys don't have. And he does have the it factor, he certainly does. But yeah, it was made to work for the win, but it was a good win. It was a perfect kind of comeback fight. I felt that the stoppage was a little bit premature from Tony Weeks, but other than that, he didn't really put a foot wrong. And yeah, he does inject excitement into the 140 division, and there's some big fights to be made for him. Eddie, I don't know if you saw any of it at all, but if you did, then say a couple words. If not, I will bring this review part to a close and welcome our special guest, former WBO Heavyweight World Champion Joseph Parker.
Yeah, Joe. I seen, a little bit of it, and I saw some of the highlights. I made sure I got back to it because I tried to watch some of it, but I actually couldn't get to it 100%. But I was watching the highlights, but I couldn't even do that. I'm so busy, man, always running around doing so much work. But from what I saw, he was boxing the kid pretty good, but he was staying there a little bit too much, giving the guy opportunities a little bit to win the only way he could. But you can kind of see he was feeling good. He was confident. You could see he felt comfortable at the weight a little more than I guess what he was when he was trying to make 35. He looked strong. The punches looked like they were obviously having an effect. Obviously, ended up getting the stoppage. He was still sharp. You can still see he's class. You can still see he's one of the better guys that's out there. You know what I mean? But I still, when I watch him get hit, and this is me with a lot of fighters, like I always go back to looking at Shakur Stevenson, he does not allow you to hit him for no reason. You understand what I'm saying? That's a very, very important thing with fighters. I feel like you cannot allow punches to land just because you want to show how tough you are, how big your balls is, pause. You know what I mean? I think it's bigger than that. It's more important. So even though you're good and you're feeling great, still fight as clean as you possibly can. Yeah, it's great for the fans to stay there and exchange blows with a guy and things like that. But when you're that high of a level above him, if you're that much better than him, you've got to prove it, and you got to make sure that you don't get hurt. And I stress that a lot. A lot of fighters don't think about it like that, and when their career's over, they don't talk really well. They're not able to do certain things. They're not able to articulate enough to even be, pundits. So take this thing serious. I think if you're that kind of class and you're that far above them, outclass him. Don't let him touch you if you can. That's why I really respect Shakur's skills and ability, because he doesn't just allow you to land shots unnecessarily. You know what I mean? But fair play. He looked good. He looked sharp. You know, it was an exciting fight. The fight, at least it looked to be. He got the stoppage, and there's not too much critique I can put on him. I think he did well. But if we're gonna say anything, and I'm looking out for him when I'm saying this, try to be as clean as possible when you get in there. Punches there, they don't pay you for overtime, and they don't pay you to get hit either. I mean, they kind of do, but if you can avoid it, that's the best. You know what I mean? Anyway, great fight. It was, you know, from what I've seen, and it looked to be exciting. Great win. Congrats to him.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. And that brings the review part of the show to a close. The final thing for me to do just before we end this part is to welcome this week's special guest. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the former WBO Heavyweight World Champion. It is, of course, Mr. Joseph Parker. Joseph, welcome back on the show, my man.
Thank you for having me on, as always.
Always a pleasure speaking with you, Joe. So we last spoke back in September, almost a year ago. It was just after the Derek Chisora rematch was announced for later that year. Obviously, that first fight was a really difficult fight. Most people expected the second one to go the same way. I personally didn't think it was the smartest move to take the second fight, but you didn't have many options on the table, but you dealt with him in good fashion. You had him down 3 times on the way to that unanimous decision. Were you happy with that performance now, looking back?
Looking back now, I was a lot happier with that performance compared to the first one. And a lot of things come into play with that performance. It's just the more time I have with Andy Lee, being a bit more comfortable here in a new training environment, in the team that I have, or the new team that I have linked up with, and just putting things in place in camp where I was able to execute it a lot better, you know, in the fight. So I was able to be more aggressive and not too defensive, and I was able to show that I could stand there and trade. And I think it was a good performance. Now, if you compare it to a lot of my performance as of late, that was probably one of the best ones. You know what I mean? 100%. So I was happy with it.
Yeah, 100%. Probably your best performance for 3 and a bit, maybe 4 years, I'd say. And yeah, you know, even last time out, Chisora obviously beat Pulev, so it goes to show it was a good win. After that, again, things went a little bit quiet. There was talk of the Joe Joyce fight. I think it was on, then it was off. Now it's back on, of course. September 24th is the date at the Manchester Arena. Surely, Joe, that's got to be one of your favourite arenas to box at. I think you're 3-0 there. You've boxed there, obviously, in both of your last 2 fights. You also beat Hughie Fury there years ago. It seems to be one of your best venues that you perform in.
Listen, it's you know, with the 3 wins, I'm sure this venue is going to give me the 4th win. Listen, I love fighting here in the UK. Obviously, the team that I have now is based here, and I'm based here myself. It's great to train here, but there's a lot of support. I know I'm from New Zealand, but there are a lot of New Zealanders living here. There's also a lot of support from the British fans. So it's nice to be here, nice to be to get amongst everyone and to be fighting back in the Manchester Arena. You know, where I've had 3 good wins.
3 good wins, all 3 by decision. Apart from the money, because I'm sure the money was good for this fight, but what else made you want to fight Joe Joyce? Because he's a guy I don't think many fighters want to fight, and in some ways he's almost a little bit freakish in terms of, you know, the great engine, the really good chin. He's very strong, you know, not really the kind of attributes you'd link with a heavyweight.
Joe Joyce is a challenge for any heavyweight out there. Great engine, keeps coming forward, throws a lot of punches, and for me, I've come off a win over Derek Chisora, but there's no point. I was offered other fights. There were other fights out there to get in the ring and fight this person. You know, you're meant to win this fight or that fight, but the Joe Joyce fight was talked about for a while, and when I did sign with Sky, I made it clear to him that I wanted that fight if we could make it happen. And so, you know, credit to Sky and Boxer and, you know, Frank Warren, Queensbury, and, you know, BT Sports for working together to make this happen. Thanks to my manager, David Higgins, for making it happen, because it's a fight that I wanted. I love challenges, and I feel Joe Joyce is a big challenge, a great challenge, and it's a challenge for me to take on at this time.
And I was on the phone the other day to heavyweight Michael Hunter, who's a good personal friend of mine, and he was with about 3 or 4 other people, and we were like all kind of talking about this fight and, you know, just talking about the tactics of it, and it's so exciting. And tactically, I wanted to ask how you saw the fight going, because between all of us on the phone the other day, we were kind of thinking, well, Parker's got the edge in speed. Parker can also bang. Parker also has a good chin. Joyce has struggled a couple times with guys that are a couple inches shorter than him in the past. And for a big, tall guy, he doesn't really fight on the outside much. We think that will work to your advantage.
Yeah, it can work to my advantage, but you know, I see Joe Joyce as a fighter who, you know, he's got this style that everyone, you know, he comes forward and he you know, for a big guy, he's got good reach and good height, and he should use it to his advantage. But he likes to fight in close, or he likes to close, you know, the fighter down or his opponent down. So I think I've given, you know, Andy Lee as my coach in this fight. He's come up with a good game plan, which we're practicing every day in the gym, and it's a bit of everything. You know, I think the great fighters are the ones that if you go into a fight and you fight plan A and that doesn't work, the good fighters are the ones that are able to change it up and, you know, try different plans until you get the right plan. So we're working on different strategies and different game plans that we think will be able to counter what he brings.
And I watched the press conference today, actually, for the first time. I missed it, you know, when it initially happened. And I've got to say, it was probably one of the most awkwardest press conferences I've seen in recent times. Was it awkward being there, Joe?
Listen, imagine. Yeah, I was just going to say, imagine being the person involved in this awkward press conference. You know what I mean? It was awful. Like you got 2 nice guys, you know, and then we don't talk crap, and then, you know, there was a bit of frustration because it took a while to lock the fight in, and they're saying this about our team and we're saying this about their team. But just everything that I said, you know, when Joe Joyce was replying, it's like everything came out backwards. I don't know, you know, it was awkward.
It was really quite funny at times, but yeah, it was awkward. It did look that way. Joe, should you win against Joyce, what's kind of in the plans for 2023? Because I'm guessing you probably, I was going to say you probably won't fight again before the year's out, but then I remember the press conference you did say there's a rematch clause that could see you fight him again in December.
Yeah, look, you know, the goal is to fight on September 24, get the win. You know, have a little bit of a break, go home and see my kids, my wife, and then come back again and train to beat him again in December. Then, you know, once I beat Joe Joyce twice, then, you know, there's a lot more doors and opportunities that do open up. But my full focus is on Joe Joyce because he is, you know, he's not one of those fighters that you can just look over and look past. You have to give him, you know, my full attention and do everything I can in training to be in the best possible shape that I can be in going to this fight.
And over the past weekend, Tyson Fury celebrated his birthday. He came out and said he's retired. A lot of the media and the fans have learned to kind of take sometimes what he says with a pinch of salt because he does love to wind people up. It's not the first time, of course, he's announced his retirement. So we're not sure whether to believe it or not. But you're a lot closer to the camp these days. Do you really think that's it, that we won't see him in a ring again?
Yeah, listen, a lot of people are saying that, you know, he says a lot of things, but whatever he says, I just take it and accept it. You know, he said he is retired and he's enjoying a lot of time with his family and doing other things. Besides, he's training every day though. He's a part of our camp and training, and you know, he's coming to all the sessions, doing his own boxing sessions, going for runs. But at the moment, I think he is really retired and just enjoying his life and enjoying the time that he has with his family because he spent a lot of time away from his family.
Yeah, and I was going to say, I did see you jogging with him the other day. I was assuming that, you know, he'd come into camp, and I just wanted to know how much of the time he'd been there, but you pretty much answered it there. He's almost been in every day, which is cool. Yeah, has he giving you any pointers? I know he sparred Joyce in the past a long time ago, but I feel like he knows Joyce quite well in terms of how he fights, because he wasn't in great shape at the time, but by all accounts, he did really well, Tyson.
Yeah, sorry, you cut out there.
Oh, sorry, I'll repeat. I was saying Tyson in the past, I know that he sparred Joyce, but Tyson himself was massively out of shape. Has he been able to give you any pointers? I feel like he knows Joyce's fighting style quite well.
Listen, I think he knows Joyce, yeah, because of that sparring that they've had in the US. before the Wilder fight. But I haven't really spoken to him about the sparring or what happened. He did mention that they did spar, but maybe I should pick his brains a bit more on it, because he would know Joyce quite well from that from that camp.
Yeah, for sure. And this weekend, the big rematch, Joshua Usyk. I'm sure you're gonna certainly be tuning in to watch it, Joe. Who wins the rematch and how?
It's a great fight. It depends. It depends what Adrian turns up. There's a lot of changes within this team and how he's approaching this fight, and hopefully he's in a great mindset and mind frame going into this fight. But I'll favor Usyk, and also he's just very skilled, and he's I heard he's put in some great work in the sparring and training. Both guys have, but I think I'm edging a little bit towards Usyk just because of the first fight and how it sort of ended.
Yeah, I have to agree. And your former foe, a man that you firsthand had experience being in a ring with, Mr. Andy Ruiz. You were one of the few people that gave him a chance against Joshua, of course. He boxes Luis Ortiz September 4th. I think that's a really interesting fight. But how do you see that one playing out, Joe?
Well, I'm the same as you. I think that's very interesting. You got Ruiz, young, fast, good speed on him, good power. Then you got Ortiz, who's a little bit older. I'm not sure how old he is, or I don't think anyone knows how old he is, but he still can pop, And we've seen it. Was his last fight against Martin? Was that his last fight?
Was it?
Or did he have another fight after that?
Who's this? Ortiz. Ortiz. Yeah. I think it was Martin.
Yeah, he looked good in that fight. Martin was doing well, and he got caught with a big, left hand. So Ortiz can still pop at whatever age he's at. So it's an interesting fight. I don't know how to call it, to be honest.
Yeah, it is an interesting one. And just finally, Joe, if you've got a prediction for your fight, only if you have one, obviously September 24th, back at, I want to say, your backyard now, Manchester Arena. How do you see it going?
I think it's going to be a tough fight, but I'm going to be ready for it. I'm going to be prepared because I'm doing everything right. And I am so excited for this opportunity to showcase my skills and the power that I do possess as a heavyweight. And I want to beat Joyce up. I want to beat him up. And my goal is to get him out of the ring and be the first person to do it.
There we go. And just finally, Joe, if you've got any closing words just to the listeners before we let you go, say whatever you like, my friend.
All the listeners, thank you guys for tuning in. And thank you guys for the support, for myself, for boxing. And look forward to putting on a great performance come the 24th of September, and I can't wait.
Absolutely. We'll all be tuning in. Listen, Joe, it's always a pleasure speaking with you. You know that. Best of luck September 24th in Manchester, and we'll speak sometime afterwards.
Thank you, bro. Thank you very much.
Okay, now it's time for part 2 on this week's show. This part, of course, the news part of the show. Going to start here with this one. It was a bit of a shocker because the fight was supposed to take place I want to say a couple years ago now, and it didn't happen. Then it was on again, and it looked like it was certainly going to be happening, but no. Earlier this week, Adrian Broner pulled out of his upcoming fight against Figueroa. Adrian Broner has expressed that he's dealing with a lot of issues mentally in terms of his mental health and stuff. So yeah, he's pulled out of his fight with Figueroa. Figueroa is another guy who's had to overcome a hell of a lot of mental health struggles in recent times. So yeah, both guys were kind of in a similar spot, I guess, mentally, I guess career-wise, and a few other things. Both former champions and stuff. But yeah, I'm a bit. I mean, it's not about what I think. Of course, if he really is struggling with mental health stuff, then let's sympathise with him for those things, even though I don't think Adrian Broner is the most liked or likeable fighter out there. But if he is going through these situations, then of course we have to feel sympathy for him. But yeah, it's a shame that fight has fallen through, because I was really looking forward to that fight. I think Adrian Broner was quite a big favourite, and in steps Sergei Lipinets to fill the spot. He was supposed to be on the undercard, so he's now elevated to the main event against Figueroa, and Lipinets automatically becomes the favourite again. So yeah, there's a lot on the line for, I guess, Figueroa now. There always was, but Figueroa the underdog in both of the fights, and I feel a little bit sorry for him because Obviously, he's been preparing for Adrian Broner for such a long time, and for the last-minute switcheroo on fight week, it's not ideal, because Figueroa is a guy who I think has a lot to prove to himself if he wants to carry on boxing. And I think, if you've been preparing all this time for Broner and you're really, looking to upset the odds and put on a show and show everyone that you're still, a top dog in the division, to have a last-minute switch against a completely different guy, I feel like it's not ideal. I feel like you're not going to be able to make that same splash that you thought you were going to do. So I hope he can win. I like Omar. He's been on the show before, as has Lipinets, to be totally honest. I like both guys, but I'd like to see Omar Figueroa have a bit of luck because he hasn't had much luck in recent times. Anyway, let's leave that there. Moving on to the next piece of news. Denzel Bentley has had his next fight announced. It's going to be September 16th, which is a Friday. It's going to be live on BT Sport at York Hall. He'll be stepping in, defending his title, his British title, against Marcus Morrison. So that one could be quite interesting. We'll have to wait and see. I think Bentley probably on points. That's my prediction, I think, for that one there. In other news, we have the fact that Top Rank have signed the heavyweight knockout artist Arslanbek Makhmudov. He's signed with Top Rank. 33 years of age is Makhmudov these days. Managed, I think, by the Eye of the Tiger management based in Canada. He's been a pro a little while now. 14-0 with 14 KOs he is. So there's a lot of fights I'd like to see him involved in. It's going to be interesting to see how they maneuver him. But yeah, I'm all for it and really excited for that. What else do we have? Yeah, another good piece of news actually. Amanda Serrano has been added to the Joe Joyce Joseph Parker card. We just spoke to Joseph Parker a few moments ago. Amanda Serrano on the undercard defending her WBO, WBC, and a couple of other titles I think she has at featherweight. So she's moved back down in weight after fighting Katie Taylor at the MSG. What was that, earlier this year? I think it was. Time seems to be just flying. But she gets in with Sarah Mafoud, I think it's said, who has the IBF title. So it's a unification, I think it's a unification. I don't think the WBA is on the line, otherwise it would have been an undisputed fight there. But great to see Amanda Serrano fighting in the UK, unbelievable. Elsewhere on that card as well, we have Anthony Kakachi getting in with a fighter I haven't actually heard of. He's 21-0 with 13 KOs. He gets in with this guy here, Michael Magnesi. He's an unbeaten Italian fighter, and it's for the IBO Super Featherweight World title. So all the best there to Anthony Kakachi. And in other news, it has been announced as well. It's going to be going down, Eddie, on October 15th. It's going to be happening in New York at the Barclays Center. We have the return of Deontay Wilder. He steps in with former sparring partner Robert Helenius. I'm not going to give my opinion too much on that fight, but did you want to say a couple words? Helenius Wilder, good comeback fight or not?
I mean, I feel like, yeah, that's a good comeback fight in a sense. I mean, I think Helenius is going to be there to be hit. He's not really got any special effects. He's a dangerous puncher, but Wilder's proven to be tough, and I think this is one fight that he might be able to win on the cards, because I just don't see Helenius as that complicated a guy. You know what I'm saying? He has the dangerous, heavy, big right hand, and he's a big guy, but I think he's honestly a big target. I think the difference with him and what's my man, Ganofsky, Adam Ganofsky, who lost to Helenius and giving him that lease on life. That's like that new lease on life as far as in the division. His style was to try to get close and overwhelm. I think for Wilder, he just needs somebody to be on the end of his shots. So I mean, I think this is actually not a bad fight for him. Might be jumping right back into the fire a little bit, but I think it's something that he can handle, to be honest. Wilder's so unorthodox and got such a big right hand that I feel like, it's a good chance that he's gonna get in there and he'll get him out of there probably within the first few, possibly the middle rounds. That's the way I see it.
Yeah, I think it's a fair enough kind of comeback fight. Helenius, as you say, did get that second or third lease of life when he was able to stop Kownacki in back-to-back fights. Obviously, the last one being back in October of last year. So by the time the fight comes around, he'd have been out the ring for a year and a week, and it's the same. It's the same exact amount of time for Deontay Wilder, because those fights, his fight with Tyson Fury, the third fight, obviously that was the same night. Kownacki and Helenius 2 was on the undercard, so both coming off the exact same amount of time out the ring. But yeah, no, Helenius, yeah, it's a decent fight, obviously. 31-3 Helenius, obviously the 2 losses, or the 3 losses I should say, to Johan Duhaupas, a guy really pretty much known for I think giving Wilder a good fight but being knocked out in the end, and then a points loss to Dillian Whyte. I think that was an awful performance by Whyte that night. And then the most recent loss to Gerald Washington, a man you know well, Eddie, back in 2019. Yeah, it's a decent fight that for Wilder. I don't really have much issue with it. Moving on to the preview part, I should say, because we've only done news all this time. Let's start. I'm going to start here in the US. I'm going to get the US out of the way first and then move on to the Saudi card. Let's start here in the US at the Pechanga Arena in San Diego, California, USA. It's going to be live on ESPN and ESPN Plus, I think, the undercard. Couple good fights here by the way. We have Nico Ali Walsh on the undercard, 5-0. He has a rematch here with Reyes Sanchez, who's 7-2. If you remember, Nico Ali Walsh, I think, won the first fight by majority decision over 4 rounds, and it was really close. Like, a lot of people felt Sanchez deserved the decision, so credit to Nico Ali Walsh for getting back in with Sanchez. Sanchez, I think, has had 2 fights since. He won 1 and lost 1. Nico has obviously picked up, I think, maybe 2 or 3 wins since then, if I'm not mistaken. Elsewhere on the card, Lindolfo Delgado, 15-0, gets in with Omar Aguilar, who's 24-0. That's over 8 rounds there. We also have Giovanni Santillan, 29-0, getting in with Julio Avila, who's 19-0 with 2 draws. That's over 10 rounds there. And the main event, Emmanuel Navarrete, 35-1, defending his WBO Featherweight World title. He gets in with Eduardo Baez, who's 21-2 with 2 draws. Navarrete, of course, the deserving favourite in the fight. I love watching Navarrete fight. Still one of the youngest, I say youngest, I think he's about 27 now, but I remember him being, 24, 25, beating the likes of Isaac Dogboe, looking really good. But he's always really exciting to watch, I think. But Baez, I don't know, I don't think his style is going to gel too well with Navarrete's. I think it does take 2 to tango in most situations, and I think this fight here might be a little bit boring, dare I say. I hope I'm wrong, but I think Navarrete should have it in the bag. Eduardo Baez, not really a big puncher or anything like that. A tough Mexican, of course, they all are. But the losses came by majority decision to Rais Salim and by unanimous decision to Maurizio Lara, who a lot of people know recently for his fights against Josh Warrington, of course. So that's it really for that card there. All the best to all the guys on that card. Moving out now to the Mohegan Sun Casino in Connecticut, USA. This one isn't on TV, but I'm going to mention it, of course. Friend of the show, Cassius Chaney, 21-1 these days, in an 8-rounder here against Matthew McKinney, who's 9-5 with 3 draws. Moving out now to the Seminole Hard Rock Hotel and Casino in Hollywood, Florida, USA. This one's going to be live on Showtime. We mentioned it a few moments ago. Omar Figueroa, 28-2 with a draw, steps in with Sergey Lipinets. I think they kind of had the fight finalized on like Monday or something. Lipinets 16-2 with a draw. Lipinets a big favorite. It's for the WBC silver super lightweight title, so it's at 140, which is a weight I think Figueroa really needs to be at. I don't want to see him up at 147s and 154s and stuff like that. It's another thing Broner was doing, fighting at weights that he really shouldn't be boxing at. They were so similar in ways. But yeah, Lipinets obviously is a 140 fighter as well, and he's a proper 140 fighter, so it's going to be interesting. I hope Figueroa can pull it off. On the undercard, Roger Gutierrez defends his WBA World Super Featherweight title, 26-3 with a draw. He gets in with the undefeated Hector Garcia, who is 15-0. We also have Alberto Puello, who's 20-0. Fighting here for the vacant WBA World Super Lightweight title against a guy called Botirzon Akhmedov, who's 9-1. Never heard of that guy. Talking of guys I have heard of, though, the very exciting prospect Brandon Lee, 25-0, gets in here with Will Madera, who's 17-1 with 3 draws. I think Brandon Lee's recorded about 22 KOs in his 25 wins. Very exciting young fighter. Elsewhere on the card, I don't know if he's definitely fighting or not, but he was listed to fight. Ishmael Barroso, a bit of a throwback name, I guess, from the Anthony Crolla days. 23-3 with 2 draws, no opponent just yet for him. Former world champion Roche Warren, 19-3 these days. A little bit of a kind of a who really needs him kind of club I think he's found himself in. Like I say, 19-3. I think the most recent loss came to Nordine Ubali, and he's just kind of fell off the wagon kind of thing. No one's really talking about this guy anymore. He gets in with Francisco Portillo, who's 17-11 with 2 draws. But yeah, Roche Warren, very talented fighter. I'd like to see him, make another big run. I think he is still one of the top guys. He just doesn't ever get mentioned. I can't even tell you what weight he's fighting at these days. It's just so bizarre. I kind of link him with Robert Easter Jr., like 1 or 2 losses and just disappeared off the face of the earth kind of thing. Why are these guys not getting big fights? Particularly Robert Easter, but that's another conversation. What on earth's happened to him? In other news, Fyodor Sezkazin, 19-0 at middleweight here over 8 rounds against Gilbert Venegas, who's 11-1. Anyway, that's it for that. Moving out now to the big one. I think we'll all agree it goes down in the Jeddah Superdome in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, live on DAZN. If you're not in the UK, it's on DAZN, but if you are in the UK, it's on Sky Box Office. Let's start with the undercard. It's good to see Ben Whittaker back. This will be his second fight in quick succession. He made his pro debut, I think it was this month, to be honest with you, I think. Anyway, he gets in with Peter Nosic, who's actually 6-0, an undefeated fighter. Obviously wouldn't have nowhere near the same pedigree as an amateur as Ben Whittaker, the silver medalist. A young Ukrainian light heavyweight. I think he's about 6'6", this guy. Very, very tall. He's 5-0. All 5 wins have been on points. He's managed to land himself on the undercard. He gets in with Joseph Djurko, who's 9-6 with a draw. We've also got Ramla Ali, who's 6-0. Obviously the Muslim fighter. She fights here against a lady called Crystal Nova, who's 10-2, but all 10 of her wins have come by knockout. She's been knocked out once in one of her 2 losses. Ramla Ali, I think 6-0 with 1 KO, so you'd imagine that fight's going to kind of be bull and matador, so Ramla Ali's not going to want to stand and trade with Crystal Nova, because Crystal Nova's only chance really is going to be to hurt Ramla Ali and put it on her and knock her out and stuff. So Ramla Ali I think is going to be running there, so that's free money if you want to bet on that points win. It's almost even money there for Ramla Ali to get a points win. I think that's the way it's going to go. And Crystal Nova, 10 knockouts, for a lady that doesn't happen much. She's 25-1 for the knockout win if she can get the upset. That's her only way of doing it. We've also got Andrew Tabiti, a bit of a strange one on the undercard. 19-1 Tabiti these days. He gets in with an undefeated fighter by the name of James Wilson, who's 7-0 with a draw. Andrew Tabiti, 15 KOs from his 19 wins. James Wilson, 6 KOs from his 7 wins. So you'd have to say really that it shouldn't go the distance. The only thing with this guy, James Wilson, is that he hasn't boxed for 3.5 years. He last boxed in over 6 rounds against a guy who was 13-20, and it was a majority draw over 6 rounds. So he's coming back off that, and yeah, gets in with Tabiti. He's a 6 foot tall heavyweight, by the way, this guy. And this fight here is I'm guessing it must got to be cruiserweight, hasn't it? I guess I'm getting confused once again, Eddie. Tabiti is he's the cruiser. Yeah, there we go. I got it this time. Didn't confuse him with a light heavy. And elsewhere on the card, another real strange one, I guess. Badou Jack, 26-3 with 3 draws these days. He gets in with an undefeated fighter, Richard Rivera, who's 21-0. Badou Jack in recent times has just been frustratingly having really, really small, strange, fights that don't really make much sense. He boxed on a Jake Paul undercard back in 2020, after he lost to John Pascal back in December 2019. That was his comeback fight on a Jake Paul undercard, and I felt like he had unfinished business really with John Pascal. It was a split decision loss. Then, of course, after the Jake Paul shenanigans, he ends up fighting on a small card. I can't remember who. I think it was another. It might have even been another Jake Paul undercard or something like that, or some kind of undercard. He's just been really popping up in weird places on weird undercards. 4 wins since he lost to Jean Pascal, 3 by knockout, but the opponents have been just terrible in terms of levels. And he had a fight in Dubai in that time. I think 2 fights in Dubai in that time against completely unknown guys. Here he gets in with this guy Richard Rivera, like I say, 21-0, 16 KOs, an American fighter as well from Connecticut. But yeah, I mean, as a pro, he hasn't got any names on his record that I notice at all. So I don't know if this guy is going to just be, I don't want to say a fraud. That's a bit too hot, a bit too harsh. But I mean, Eddie, we've come across some funny nicknames, and this guy's nickname is Popeye the Sailor Man. He's a 31-year-old. It's one of the worst nicknames I've ever come across, actually. There, so yeah.
He might get that award, Joe. Yeah, he's gonna get that award for that one.
Yeah, I much prefer Badou Jack the Ripper. I much prefer that. Moving up the card, we have this one here. I tell you what, if you want to make money for free, then please bet on this. Because, look, I have been counting down the days for this fight to happen. It was supposed to happen before. Filip Hrgović, 14-0. His dad passed away, so that's why it didn't happen last time. And someone stepped in to fight... to take his place, and it was an American. The American got knocked out. It was Scott Alexander, of course. He got knocked out in 1 round, and he made Zhilei Zhang look good. He made Zhilei Zhang look really good. Banged this guy out in a round who had about two or 3 days' notice, I think. Obviously, they have managed to get the fight back on. I think it's some kind of eliminator there. So, anyway. Filip Hrgović, 14-0. With 12 KOs, stepping in with Zhilei Zhang, 24-0 with 1 draw, 19 KOs, the 6'6" southpaw Chinaman, who these days is 39 years of age. So yeah, the bet is, I think Filip Hrgović knocks him out. I would even go as far to say I could see it happening within the first half of the fight, maybe even within 4 rounds. So yeah, I'm going to be betting on that. But certainly for him to for Hrgović to knock out Zhilei Zhang, that is I just can't see anything else but that. Like, I would put my house on that to happen. So let's see if I'm going to look really foolish this time next week. It's going to be exciting. Stepping up once again, we have Callum Smith of the UK, 28-1, coming off that loss, by the way, to Canelo. It seems like that was ages ago, but yeah, he hasn't boxed since then, Callum Smith. Oh no, he has. He boxed his one fight up at light heavy, didn't he? When he knocked out a guy in a couple of rounds. Oh, yeah, that was on the Joshua Usyk undercard the first time round, if I'm not mistaken. So, yeah, he's back. He gets in with Matau Baldalik, who's 21-1, the Frenchman. Southpaw, 6'1", just come off a good win last time out against Igor McCalkin, by the way. And he's got a couple of other decent names. Dudu and Gumbu, not a bad fighter. Yeah, the one blemish on his record, though, is a terrible blemish. He lost to a guy called Dragon Lepai, who was 10-1 with 2 draws, and he was knocked out in the first round by Lepai. That one was back in 2017. I haven't seen the fight, but obviously since then he seems like he's stepped up his competition and he's been getting wins. I mean, he made Igor McCalkin quit on his stall last time out. That's quite impressive there, because the only other guy he'd been stopped by was Kovalev, and it was a good version of Kovalev back then. So I'd say this guy's got a little bit about him, but I do really think that Callum Smith is a top quality fighter, even though he looked horrendous against Canelo. So all the best to Callum Smith, friend of the show. And then, yeah, moving to the main event, all eyes over, Eddie, for the IBF, IBO, WBA and WBO Heavyweight World titles. Alexander Usyk, the champion, 19-0, stepping in with Anthony Joshua, 24-2. Will it be repeat or will it be revenge? There's so many tangibles. Anthony Joshua, of course, ditching. I'm not sure if he's completely ditched him or he's brought a new guy on board as well as his old trainer Rob McCracken. That's something I should know, to be honest, but I don't really read or watch videos much anymore with boxing news sites and stuff, so I'm not sure if he's still with McCracken. But anyway, forget about McCracken. He has Robert Garcia. That's going to be the main man, I believe, on the night. Robert Garcia, I guess, known for training a lot of guys to be pressure fighters, a lot of aggressive kind of styles we've seen him in the corner with over the years. Very good trainer. I think he was the Ring Magazine Trainer of the Year once or twice in the past. Really knowledgeable guy, obviously. Fought at the top level himself, a former world champion. But is it enough? Does it even matter who's in Anthony Joshua's corner when he gets in with a wizard like Alexander Usyk? Because that's how he looks to me. Alexander Usyk, I mean, I'm going to make a prediction that on Friday he probably will be fully clothed at the weigh-in, and he could even have a pocket full up with coins, because I think he's trying to give off the impression that he's heavier than he is. I think he's definitely a bit more bulked up from what I've seen, and I don't know if you saw the same thing, Eddie. I'm going to come to you in about 10 seconds, but it seems to me like Alexander Usyk has bulked up a bit, and to me that sends out a message that he's here to hurt Anthony Joshua this time. But then at the same time, you'd say, why do you need to do this? If it's not broke, don't fix it. You boxed tremendously last time. You nearly had him out. You don't need to bulk up and then take away a bit of your quickness and then put yourself in a position where you're going to maybe be slower on your feet and maybe have to trade with, I guess, the bigger puncher in Anthony Joshua. You'd be giving him a chance. But I think Usyk does look like he's bulked up. I'm not sure really and truly how much weight he's put on. We're going to have to wait and see. But to me, it just looks like he's bulked up a bit. And my only guess behind that would be that he's looking to plant his feet a bit more and inflict some damage on Anthony Joshua and maybe aim for the stoppage. But you're the professional, my man. So what do you think we're going to see?
Honestly, I never like a guy putting on weight on I don't want to say fluff, because it's not fluff, obviously it's solid weight, but I don't like a guy putting on excess weight unnecessarily, unless for whatever reason you got to make a weight or something like that. I don't want to take away what makes me me. You know what I mean? And I wouldn't want to take away from what won him the title. You understand what I'm saying? Like, boxing skills and IQ and the understanding of what Joshua was doing and adjustments is what kept him in the lead and kept him and put him in a position to be heavyweight champion of the world. To then, like you said, Joe, and you said it was right. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. I understand fine-tuning certain areas and certain aspects, but if you put weight on specifically to prepare to exchange with a guy who I wouldn't try to exchange with unnecessarily unless there's a certain plan you have to go along with it. I get it if he's figuring, well, I'm ready to combat what Joshua is probably coming to do, which is to right from the early onset of the fight to come in there and try to dominate strength wise as well as space and to put his will to Usyk immediately, which is what I would have said to do in the first fight, because I wouldn't want to give him the opportunity to get into a groove and start boxing, which is exactly what happened. And then he ended up winning the decision and almost getting him out of there. Actually, it looks like at the end of the fight. So I go back to Usyk and say, well, what do you? I mean, I think that you want to be prepared for if it comes that way or if it goes that way. But I think with his boxing ability and what he's able to do and how he moves his head and puts himself in position, even if Anthony Joshua does come and comes to seek and destroy, I think there's more opportunity for Usyk to then pick him off. He doesn't necessarily need to. Yeah, I don't really think that he needs to be physically necessarily prepared for, oh, there's this big onslaught coming. I mean, I feel like he's already prepared for that. Skills pay the bills. I'm not saying that having size and athleticism and things like that don't add to it. Absolutely it does. And Joshua has that. But that didn't stop him from winning from Usyk beating him in the first fight. You understand what I'm saying? So it really, I don't want to say it doesn't matter or it doesn't make sense, because maybe in their plan, whatever they have planned, and maybe they are planning, hey, we're going to have to put hands on this guy, so we need to stop him. We don't want big money to come speak for us. We don't want these judges to have to, get involved and they, when they put Anthony Joshua back on top, because maybe there's a Tyson Fury fight that may be coming soon. We want to make sure that we go out there and take the judges out of this fight. I get that. But at the end of the day, you got to do your job. You got to go out there and win. Damn what might happen at the end of the fight. You got to think about what it is the best way for you to go and win the fight. And for Alexander Usyk, the best way for him to win is the way he won the previous fight. And not to put yourself in harm's way unnecessarily just because, hey, man, we got to get this guy out of there this time. It's not important, in my opinion. You got to go out there and control what you can. Is go in the ring, box this guy, beat him from pillar to post if you can. And I don't want to say embarrass him, but yeah, if you can embarrass him, whatever it is you need to do, show you're the boss, show you're the man. But that doesn't mean you got to go out there and try to exchange with him and get a knockout just because you think that maybe the judges aren't going to agree with you. Doesn't matter. Got to go out there and win the fight the best way you know how, and the safest and smartest way you know how as well. So my advice would be to hopefully he just put that weight on his extra armor. Maybe he'll feel a little bit more of this fight. And their plan is to do the same thing and be even a little slicker, throughout the fight, because, Joshua's coming. I feel like he's not coming to go the distance. I think Joshua's coming to put him to sleep if he can. And I think that's the smart way, because you cannot allow Usyk to get in that groove again, because if he does, game over. You know what I mean? The only thing at that point you can hope to land is a lucky shot. And I just don't see that happening. So, exciting fight. I'm looking forward to it. You know what I mean? I'm generally a lighter weight guy watching lighter weight fights, but I'm really excited about this. I like the skill level that's going to be involved in it. I think obviously Usyk has a higher level of skill, but I think Joshua with Roberto Garcia now being involved, I think it's going to be really, really interesting to see the changes. You know what I mean? That he's trying to implement. Maybe he's not really changing anything. Maybe just focusing on different ways to aim Anthony Joshua's ability and hopefully be successful in this fight. So looking forward to it. It's exciting. But I'm still thinking Usyk by decision.
Yeah, Usyk decision. I think Usyk with a late stoppage around the second half of the fight. But if I had to be more specific, I'd say 9-12. I do want to wrap this up, and I know that time is of the essence, Eddie. We've got to wrap this up in a minute, but I just wanted to say that after the first fight, there was this, I think it was Eddie Hearn who kind of came out with it initially, and obviously a hell of a lot of casual fans listen to what Eddie Hearn says, and, Eddie Hearn must be right because he said it. And there was this kind of... This attitude, or this what's the word I'm looking for? This agenda that a lot of boxing casual fans took on, that it was just as simple as, oh, Anthony Joshua needed to let his hands go sooner. When he let his hands go in one of the rounds, he had some success. He clipped Usyk with a good shot. I think it was in round 9 or something. He just needs to start faster. He needs to go for it. He needs to trade with Usyk. And I'm trying to say, no. That is not how it works. You don't just press a button and that's how the fight's going to go. No. That would leave him even more open, like you said, to being picked off by the much smarter fighter. I was arguing this out with a couple people just yesterday outside in the street. I was talking to a couple guys, and I was saying it isn't as simple as that. It takes two to tango, and I think Usyk is in the driving seat. If he wants to box, it will be a boxing match. If he wants to trade, it will be a fight. I think it's up to Usyk. I think he is in full control because the IQ is so heavily in his favor.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And I think the only way that Anthony Joshua changes that is by upsetting that. You know what I mean? In a way where you can't just go out and be busy. You know, it's not like that. You know, it's not that simple. I'm just gonna come out and throw punches. Because if you do it in an unintelligent way, if you do it in a way that isn't really what's the word I'm looking for? That isn't really I guess intelligible. Doesn't you don't see openings. You're just throwing the throw. You're gonna put yourself in harm's way in a way where Usyk is easy for him to set traps for a guy who's just gonna keep walking onto him. He's gonna keep walking on the punches. You understand what I'm saying? And don't get me wrong, being aggressive, being strong, mauling him at times is the way to go, but you have to still do it within a plan. There has to be some kind of plan in play. You can't just walk in and throw punches. That would be like, okay, that means anybody from on the street that's big and strong could just come and beat Alexander Usyk, the heavyweight champion of the world. That's not how it's going to work. You got to go in with a plan. It's got to be round by round. You got to know what you're going to do. I think he should pick up the pace. There's no doubt about it. I think he should be on him. I don't think he should be looking to wait to see what's going to happen at the end of the fight by get to the final bell, wait for the decision. No. I think he should be going in, seek and destroy, looking for a knockout, but do it in an intelligent way. Behind the jab, lots of feints, a lot of pressure, foot pressure. Make Usyk uncomfortable. You have to make him uncomfortable, because if he gets into that groove and he's able to start picking shots and getting you gun shy about things and unsure, you're just gonna be lunch meat, and that's just the way it is. So you're 100% right, Joe. You can't just come in wild. You got to come in with a solid game plan, and you got to be focused, and you got to be ready to possibly lose, to win. You understand what I'm saying? So you got to take chances. You got to put yourself out there, but not unnecessarily and not in an unintelligent way.
Yeah, no, I agree, of course, and yeah, it's a lot more than just being more aggressive for Anthony Joshua. He does have to follow a game plan it's got to be a good game plan, and it's got to be a game plan he can follow to absolute perfection. Anything less and he loses the fight. We've never seen him be as smart as what he's going to need to be Usyk, and of course Usyk isn't going to do what we saw Andy Ruiz do in that second fight in Saudi. Same place but not quite the same fighter. But anyway, that wraps up the preview part of the show. I'm super excited for Saturday now, if I wasn't before. That brings everything to a close, though. The final thing for me to do is to come in with the outro, which I'll do in just a few seconds. Okay, and this wraps up episode 357 of the BoxHard Podcast. I've been your host, Joey Coastman. Eddie Chambers has been with me for the duration of the show. A huge thank you to our special guest this week, the former WBO Heavyweight World Champion Joseph Parker. The biggest thanks of all, though, goes out to you, the listeners. That's about everything from myself. Enjoy your weekends, people. I know you will. Stay safe, and we shall see you all again next week.